Shalom, welcome to the Jewish View. My name is Rabbi Nachman Simon with the Chabad House of Dalmar, together with my co-host Mark Ronich of Statewide News Service, has been covering the capital for over 30 years.
And I've been having a lot of fun with that. And along the way, I picked up a good friend who's Assemblywoman Shelley Mayer. And welcome to the Jewish View.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me. Mark and I were lucky enough to work together earlier in our careers, so it's all good.
I'm glad you say lucky enough over here.
That's right. Well, that's why she came on the show, I guess. So anyway, but thank you. It's a real honor that you're here. It really is.
Thank you.
You have a phenomenal background, and it's the first time you're on the show, so
yes.
We like to open it up so you could tell us a little bit about yourself.
Tell yourself and your area that you cover.
Okay, so thank you for having me. I represent the 90th Assembly District that's solely within the city of Yonkers. The city of Yonkers is New York's fourth largest city, 200,000 people, on the border of the Bronx. Mm-hmm. So it's neither suburb nor the biggest city, but somewhere in between, and a very challenging place. I grew up there. I am the only Jewish elected official right now that represents the city of Yonkers. But we've had many in the past, including Cecile Singer, who represented the Assembly district that I currently serve in as a Republican many years ago. And she's a wonderful role model and mentor. I saw her recently.
Send her my best.
I will. I will. So I represent a challenging urban environment.
Why do you say challenging?
Because
Yonkers is a nice area, isn't it?
It is a district that has had many problems over the years, including two major lawsuits involving intentional racial discrimination in housing and education that led to tremendous change. It has a school district that is about 70% Latino and an underfunded school district, which I spent all my time fighting for. I went to public schools in Yonkers as a child. And it has a growing city because as the economy has done well and it's so close to Manhattan, it continues to do well. It has a older Jewish community. Many of the Jews that were there when I grew up have left, and what remains is one conservative and quite older synagogue, which I belong to.
Lincoln Park?
No, Lincoln Park is now an Orthodox Spanish-speaking synagogue.
Rabbi Vinyas.
Rabbi Vinyas.
Yeah. What does that mean, Orthodox Spanish?
The services are in Spanish.
Rabbi
the rabbis
Vinyas is from Cuba.
Speak Spanish.
How many people are there?
They have, this is on the border of New York City. We've got lots of Argentinian and Cuban Jews, and
I never knew that. That's why I brought it up. It's so interesting.
He is one of the chaplains of our police department, which is quite great. And then we have a small but thriving Chabad. What I was saying, that attracts sort of a mix of people. I go there frequently. Rabbi Mindy Hurwitz, wonderful person, very welcoming. But as someone who grew up as a Reform Jew in the Reform congregations that existed in Yonkers, all of that has left. And there's about 3,000 primarily older Jews left in Yonkers.
Tell me who the rabbi is of the Chabad again?
Mindy Hurwitz. Mendy Hurwitz.
Mendy. Okay.
Mendy.
All right. I thought I was hearing M-I-N-D-Y.
No, M-E-N-D-Y.
And I'm thinking, wait a
Mendy.
minute, something. No, but there's another synagogue that I discovered. It might not be in your district, but it might be more towards Bronxville or up. It's very close to where a friend of mine lives.
Oh, well, that could.
There's a smaller. It looks like it's an older, but it looks more like a small congregation.
Well, there are some congregation outside, but since I literally only represent, and I only am within the city district. In fact, I don't have the whole city of Yonkers. I share it with Assemblyman Gary Pretlow and the Senate State Senator Andrea Stewart-Cousins, who's the Democratic leader, and Senator George Latimer. So, this is a big, as I say, complex place. And it's a challenge to represent. It's fun. I mean, Mark knew me before I was in the Assembly, but this is quite an opportunity to have my own voice.
And I also wanted to let people know you represent the Empire Casino.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And you also represent the Ridge Hill
Shopping Center.
I was there recently. That's a very nice place.
Yes, it's a lovely place. And Empire Casino, which is the largest private employer in Yonkers.
It's basically, 4 or 5 neighborhoods that you...
It's about 10 neighborhoods.
10 neighborhoods. I only found 4 or 5.
There's many different ones. And they go from, seriously, the Bronx border and some of the poorest communities in Yonkers to some of the wealthiest communities. And ethnically, it's fascinating because There's a thriving Irish population along McLean Avenue that borders the Bronx.
Yeah.
There is an old Polish, there is an old Ukrainian community. There's certainly a very thriving Italian community, and about 10% of Yonkers is now Indian Americans.
Wow.
Many of them from the Kerala region of India. So it is a very diverse, and obviously the Latino community is going to become the majority quite quickly.
Wow, that's amazing. So what committee assignments do you have in the Assembly?
So I am on, of most importance is the Education Committee. I'm also on Health, Labor, Cities, Social Services, and Children and Families. Education is most important because the school district needs tremendous advocacy to have enough money to do as well as it should. So that is my primary function, is fighting for the Yonkers Public Schools.
But it's more than just throwing money at
Yes.
the school districts. I
Yes.
mean, I know it's a part of the mix, but it's not just...
It's not just throwing money, but you're talking about a district as compared to a suburban district here, maybe in Albany, where they have guidance counselors and junior varsity. We don't have that. We are missing some of the essentials of a correct
Why do you
education.
say that? I mean, there are richer areas, like you say in Yonkers. There should be a decent tax base.
It's a complicated historical way the schools are funded. It's half the city, half the state. And traditionally, City Hall sort of ignored the schools because those that were elected did not send their children there. It's improved remarkably under the current mayor, Mike Spano, who I ran against in 2006 and had my seat before me. But things have gotten better, but we are very underfunded. So we have challenges on the school side. It's not just money, but money's a big deal. The other is we're trying to rebuild the schools, many of which are over 100 years old, the buildings. So we're working on a project.
But rebuilding the schools is a capital expense, and that gets bonded out.
Yes, and we created a new entity to do that, like they have in Rochester, Syracuse, and Buffalo.
And in Albany, we rebuilt the schools, and they went through a bond.
Yes.
Are charter schools giving you competition in
We only
Yonkers?
have one charter school right now. It is a good school with the good outcomes, and I'm very supportive of it, but the trouble is over time, or even in the short run, the charter is paid directly by the Yonkers Public Schools for every child. So in a district that is very short of money, if charters grow, it's a loss of revenue for the public school system. It's a challenge, and I would say in the more observant Jewish community, there's very few Jewish children in the public schools. I speak on the Holocaust Memorial every year, where we have a program where we bring students of the Yonkers Public Schools to Lincoln Park Jewish Center. They're spoken to in Spanish by the rabbi, and then we have Holocaust survivors speak. And for many of them, it's their first experience with a Jew. They have no experience. They don't know any Jews except maybe a teacher. And they don't have any knowledge of Jewish culture and life and the history of the Jewish community.
Well, there's always ways of learning.
Yes,
and,
yes, it's a wonderful experience. I'm very thrilled.
I'm always learning more about
Me
the
too.
Jewish community, no matter where I
I'm
go.
trying to teach Marco.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because when I was when I was saying Kaddish for my father's passing, back over a decade ago, may he rest in peace. I had a chance to be at Lincoln Park Jewish Center, and Rabbi Vinyas was phenomenal in what he was talking about.
Oh, he's wonderful.
In terms of explaining things from a different perspective.
Yes.
And as I traveled around the state and I got to see all these different synagogues, this was one of the more really special ones. But
I would say yesterday I was in Southwest Yonkers, which had a thriving Jewish community at one time, and one of the old synagogues remains there, boarded up in the middle of a very changed neighborhood.
you could do a history of Judaism in Yonkers.
I think that's been done.
I
think
did
it's
that
been
for
done.
Albany, I
You did?
that,
Yeah, no, it'd be worthwhile.
On Central Park Avenue, it
Yes.
used to be a restaurant called Boulder Creek, I think.
Yes,
That's now empty. It's,
yes, yes.
It's such an eyesore for over a decade.
Yes.
What's happening with that? What can you do to help make that turn around?
Well, we are working on trying to rebuild the economic base of the city of Yonkers. This is a city on the Hudson River.
Right.
25 minutes from Manhattan. So there's a tremendous effort to rebuild and focus on the riverfront.
Right.
And it's dynamic and it's great and
Right.
people are moving.
Been
And
there, done that. Now you got to deal with this.
I'm
eyesore.
with you. I don't run the City of Yonkers Economic Development. I work closely with the mayor and the city council, but I'm
That's more
focused
the-
on estate issues.
Okay, that's all. That's more
That's
of
a city issue.
All right. Well,
Fair enough,
I
but-
don't ask you to follow in Mike Spano's footsteps, going from the assembly to the mayor's office, but you should stay in the assembly and be successful for many
We'll
years.
see what happens. He's term limited, so we'll see what
Oh,
happens.
he's term limited. Oh my gosh.
Who's
okay.
Mike Spano?
Mike Spano was the assemblyman. He's now
The mayor.
mayor of Yonkers. And I guess they can only serve, what, 2 terms, 8
Two-term.
years?
Well, the funny political story is that I ran against him. He was a Republican, I was a Democrat in 2006. And he beat me by a small amount. Then he switched parties. And that's how I ended up in the Senate. I didn't have a job. I thought I was going to run for the Assembly again. He switched parties and he was going to be a Democrat, and I'm a Democrat all my life. So I moved on and became, and that's how Mark and I know each other, the counsel to the Senate minority, which was the Democrats, then the Senate majority.
And I worked in the communications office for the Senate minority.
So we all-
And that's how we got
Our paths crossed.
You know, let's go
crossed.
back a little in the past. How did you get into the political life altogether? What motivated you?
Well, my father ran for office multiple times. He was a lawyer. We grew up in Yonkers. He was very much a Democrat. He believed in sort of the opposition, I would say, because at those years, the county of Westchester was solidly Republican. He was a progressive Jewish voice, and he thought you should have an opponent. He ran 4 times for office. I grew up in a household where we talked about the news. We were required on Sundays to read the Times Week in Review and report back on stories. My sisters always picked the easy stories. I had the hard stories. And so I grew up in a household where there was an expectation of community participation, your civic responsibility, also a sense that there are principles that you fight for, even if you're going to lose, and you stand up and speak for them. And my father did so. He was an extremely principled person. Recently I came across some of his writings when Kennedy was running for president in 1960, and there was tremendous anti-Catholic animus that was spoken loudly. And Yonkers is significantly a Catholic community. And he spoke up as a Jewish person and said how unacceptable it is that we would judge someone by their faith. He pledged to be a president for all people, and he was. So I grew up in a household like that. I've always was interested. I've been involved. I worked for Attorney General Bob Abrams for 12 years as an assistant attorney general.
Now that got you into your civil rights,
Yes.
the component of that. That really spurred. I know Bob Abrams, and I was covering the Capitol when he was the Attorney General. He was what, 12 years, 16 years, something.
He
like
was
that.
there. I was there 12. I think he was there about 15. Then he ran for the Senate.
Right, right. So he was. I call it 16, but yeah, and it really felt like he could be Attorney General for life.
He was
You know,
just a wonderful
he had that
person.
way about him, you know.
Totally
that
agree.
People trusted him. They felt good about him. They
Yes,
didn't feel
you're
like,
absolutely right,
You know,
Mark.
so whether he was an actor, very good actor or not, but
No, he wasn't an actor.
But that's the way he was. That's really.
He's
how
an
he felt.
authentic
He is,
person
yes, yes.
who was
I didn't
very
mean for you to
comfortable.
bristle, but I
no,
just,
no, I don't think. I think it's important to characterize
Yeah.
him correctly.
No, it is. No, you're right. And they named the Justice Building after
Yes.
him, and they wouldn't have done that if it was any, you know.
And he was
But-
also wonderful with regular people.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
he
yeah,
really had a feel for it. He came from the Bronx. He understood sort of the life of people struggling to make it into the middle class. He had a real feel for that. He was a pleasure to work for. He encouraged the most thoughtful work. He was not afraid. Also, he took stands that were not popular.
And a lot of consumer-oriented
Yes,
stances.
I did that too for him.
And that's where, you know, you got that. And now you're on the consumer protection?
No, I'm not on it, but I do a bunch of consumer
You do
bills.
have a lot of legislation
Yeah, I do.
that's consumer-oriented.
And that's because I'm very much in touch with the constituents I serve, and they call with their problems. We have a robust constituent operation in my office, and I'm very committed to trying to address the real problems they face, whether it's callers on the phone, the cost of long-term care insurance, all these things that they face are real problems, and our job is to do the best we can for them.
Now you're chair of the Women's, caucus?
Assembly Task Force on Women's Issues, which is...
Task Force on Women's Issues.
It represents the 47 Democratic women of the Assembly.
There are more women in the Assembly, Republican, Democrat, more women in the Assembly now than ever before.
Yes.
But they're the fewest number of Jews.
I heard. I didn't.
Yeah.
But that's also because as New York City particularly and the suburbs become more diverse, the new young members tend to represent the communities that they serve, and it's been a great addition to the Assembly to have these new younger members.
I mean, you look at Alan Maisel, he
Yes.
changed, and Rodney's be shot, but then,
Right.
her successor, she didn't last in the Assembly too long, she moved to the Senate.
Right.
But then, not Rodney succeeded
Rodney succeeded...
Rhoda Jacobs, right? Or was that
You're
Alec
thinking
Booker?
of
Okay.
the one who went to the Senate with the Senate Democrats, and I think that was not Rodney Cecile.
No, she's still...
Roxanne Persaud.
Roxanne Persaud, okay. Sorry about that.
No, that's fair.
But you had a lot of people who were Jewish who were leaving, who retired or left the Assembly, and African-American women, black women, are taking...
Not only African American. Really, it's incredibly diverse. There's a significant number of Latina women.
I'm talking about replacing the Jewish
in those
legislators.
communities, in some of those
yeah.
communities, for example,
That's what
communities
I
of Haitian descent
Right, yeah.
have replaced the older Jewish communities in Brooklyn,
Yeah.
and the immigrant communities generally have changed. I mean, it's true in Yonkers as well. These communities that I represent in time are going to be all significantly minority, and there's a declining Jewish community there. And I would say that the speaker, and I'm a big fan of the speaker, Carl Hastie, has been a very inclusive speaker and given every member a voice, which is really been a terrific.
Have you seen a reduction in the enthusiasm for Jewish events in the Assembly? I asked a couple of other Jewish Assembly
not at all.
members. No?
Not at all, because
The past
even
couple
those newer members who
Yeah.
represent communities particularly an older Jewish community, are very in touch with it, very mindful of it, like Mr. Mosley
Right.
and others. The community has changed, but there still is a Jewish population, so they serve them. And they're very committed to it, and I think the speaker has been great about that. So I think, we represent a vibrant, dynamic state,
Yep.
and it changes, and the Assembly changes, and I'm all for change.
It's the mosaic. That's as Mario Cuomo would call
Yes,
the
he did.
mosaic. So
He did.
I understand that. What I wanted to also ask you, you mentioned your role in the Senate.
Yes.
Do you just shake your head like I do about what's going on there, especially now? And I mean, I can't, the chairs, the vice chairs, things like, the stipends.
Stipend issue.
And you were the counsel, so what would be your take on this?
Well, I was very committed, and I remain committed to the Democrats being in control of the Senate. I think we will be able to achieve better things for the state. And right now, I think it's difficult with the Republican IDC. I also consider myself a very ethical person. I held myself and my staff to the highest standards when I was there. Yes, some of the senators did not, and some of them have been punished, and rightly so, for their conduct either in the Senate or out. Much of it was outside the Senate. I think it's very troublesome that people would say that other than chairs are eligible for the stipend. I always read the law as being very clear on that. So we'll see how it turns out. But, I am a colleague of Senator Stewart Cousins and a friend. We represent the same district together. I think she should be the leader. And, but, I coexist with the Senate. I have great personal relationships with everyone, including the Republicans, the members of the IDC I work with on many bills. My job is to get stuff done, so that's what I focus on.
I think if I asked you this, you might be channeling Senator Stewart Cousins, because you're like one with her.
We're friends and colleagues. We campaign together,
Right.
and people should not underestimate her. To survive in Yonkers politics for all the years she did,
right, yeah.
It is a very rough place. She's done well. She has a great reputation at home, and she's a friend and a colleague. I'm loyal to her.
No, and you should. No, that's fine. We need loyalties.
I believe in loyalty, as you know, Mark.
Yeah. What do you? So you're saying that vice chairs, which is a made-up title,
Yes.
are not the same as chairs, or is it the fact that they put on these vice chairs put on their forms, or someone put on their forms for them that they were chairs of the committee when they submitted the voucher to
Well,
the
I haven't
controller?
seen the form, so
Yeah.
I'll wait till I've seen the form.
All right.
I would tell you that my understanding during the years I was there was that only a chair was eligible for the stipend, which made sense.
They didn't have any vice chairs or deputy chairs.
But that's because
So-
only the chair was
Yeah,
eligible.
right.
If you chose to be a vice chair, you weren't going to get it. We didn't have such a thing. We had the chair and the ranking member, which was
Right.
the other party. And the chair got the stipend. Yes, if there was a higher stipend associated with another title, they got that. I never had any misconceptions personally about what the law allowed, and that's the way I would have done it. I'm not the counsel, nor am I the finance person, and I'll wait to see what any
Well, you're the
investigation.
former counsel, so
Yes,
it's,
but it was done by the finance staff, I believe.
Right.
I assume under the direction of the leader. So I'll wait and see what they do. I'd be very surprised if the law is interpreted to allow vice chairs.
Wow, they're going to have to give a lot of money back. But let me ask you about this other question. You mentioned you're chair of the Women's Task Force.
Yes.
The Task Force on Women's Issues.
Yes.
What is the task force looking at? What women's issues?
Childcare.
Really?
That is our number one thing. We did not do well in the budget on childcare this year. We actually have a cut in subsidized childcare, and we're very upset about it. It wasn't a great outcome. Childcare is an issue in every community throughout the state, in every district. I suspect, certainly in the Jewish community and in every other community. Maybe if you have your mother or grandmother at home, they can help you. But if you're going to work as a woman or as a man, frankly, childcare is essential.
So you're talking about subsidizing 3-year-olds? Starting with 3-year-old kids?
No, I'm actually talking about the entire time prior to kindergarten.
Oh, that's a lot.
So it's not, we have a very mishmash situation with childcare. We have subsidized childcare. We have full-day pre-K, which I think you're talking about, 4-year-olds in the city of New York, which the city pays
right.
for. And that includes within Jewish community, where they get some of the money and can provide the services. And the mayor in the city of New York has included 3-year-olds for some. But in the rest of the state, there is no full-day pre-K automatically. There's not enough money for it. And I'm talking about care from 6 weeks on, when many mothers go back to work, until the child is 5 and goes to kindergarten. We don't have a very organized system and a well-funded system and a high-quality system, high enough quality that parents feel comfortable with childcare. So we as a group are very focused on childcare. We're having a hearing tomorrow on childcare, and we're going to keep pressing about childcare until we do
Once
better.
the budget is passed, though, it's a non-issue
There's always next
anymore?
year.
There's next year.
You start
You know
That's like
what?
the Passover Seder next year.
Yeah,
in
that's right.
Jerusalem
Next year in
over there.
Jerusalem, next year in Albany. We're using that. That's going to be our phrase. Thank you.
Well, I just realized when Trump went to Jerusalem that
Yeah.
in the middle of the word Jerusalem is USA.
Yeah, that's,
And I
Oh.
never knew that. It's just,
I know, it's cute.
it's cute, So anyhow, I digress. What other issues? I know it's all really childcare, but there are so many issues.
Yeah, many
facing
other
women.
issues.
So what other?
Well, as the rabbi said, many of them are dealt with in the budget, and we fought about them.
Sure.
We certainly, we're going to continue to talk about workforce development, women learning and having opportunity for jobs throughout the sectors, not being put into sectors where they traditionally get lower pay. We just did a bill in the assembly which would prohibit an employer from asking about your prior pay history, which has a disproportionate impact on women.
Is that ban the box type thing? Or
It's a little
type of it?
different. It's
Yeah.
a different. It would be like, if I came in an interview and you asked me, what did you make before? And then they interviewed you, what did you make before?
I know, I
And you
hate
may have
that
had the
question.
same job and gotten more, so you start at a higher threshold.
We'll give you what you
Yeah,
just
exactly.
were making before, and we'll
Yes.
give you the same thing.
Exactly, or a small amount above what you got before. So we're working on that. We're working on issues involving retirement benefits for women. Many women who haven't worked in the workforce don't have anything other than Social Security at the most minimal levels. And we have to come up with some better retirement systems for them. So there's some bigger policy issues.
Are you living the dream being in the Assembly, being a member of the Assembly as opposed to staff? Is this really, are you just like thrilled like every time you go into the...
I don't think of it that way. I've had wonderful, many opportunities in my life, in my professional life and careers. Each one of them was, serving for 12 years as Assistant Attorney General was a great experience. Being counsel to the Senate minority and majority during the most tumultuous time was a tremendous challenge. This is a great opportunity. I look forward to doing something else. I'm up for the next thing.
All right.
I'm not finished yet.
So this won't be like 40 years from now. We're
No.
going to come back here
No.
to the table and see
No.
No.
Change is good.
Change is good. I always say that. My hair's changing.
Yeah,
That ain't good.
that ain't
How
good.
red it was 10 years ago?
Yes, your hair was red.
So what's the, what would you say would be the bill that you're carrying that you'd want to see passed
Well,
that would make it a dynamic year for you?
I hate to be so Yonkers-centric, but when
Yeah.
you only represent one place, that's where you are. So I have a bill that would change the way the school district is compensated for rebuilding of its buildings. Partially, it's through the state, and as you point out, they bond out. So Yonkers is paid less than the other big districts for remodeling and rebuilding schools. We're trying to change that. That would be a huge development because our kids are in buildings where the paint is chipping, the building is falling, the roof is falling in.
In Albany High School, I shook my head when, do you have swimming pools in
We
your
have one
schools?
swimming pool in a district of 27,000
You
kids.
know, they made such a big deal about redoing this pool at Albany High School. I just had it with the school district when they made that like a priority. That was
Yeah.
the first thing that they
Oh,
changed.
yeah, no, it's not our first thing.
So-
But you want to have, it's
Yeah.
27,000
No,
kids, you should have a swim
You know
team.
what, my mother, I'm from Chicago, and my mother was a kindergarten teacher for 35 years.
Oh.
And it's not just even saying, well, it's not nice, walls are painted. What an environment, a child sits down and sees everything
Exactly.
crumbling. How much you feel, hey, it's new, it's nice, you just
Exactly.
feel like learning. So it really, it's not just, okay, a nice wall painting, okay,
No,
fine.
no.
But it does affect the actual education
Absolutely.
of children.
And that's what, I'm really very committed to. So that would be the best I could do this year.
And are you making new friends in the assembly, or have you made new friends?
I knew many people because
Yeah.
I started working for Bob Abrams up here in
Okay.
in the 1990s. So
Right.
I've been around a long time. I knew most of the players, the new members I don't know, but I knew a lot of people and I sort of knew how to get stuff done.
Phil Goldfeder and Anthony Brindisi,
Yeah.
Queens and Utica, and they were sat next to each other and they really bonded, and then Phil got
Yeah.
up and left.
I
And
sit
then-
next to
and-
Neely Rosick, so we're in the same
Okay, well,
same bond.
But so Anthony's now going around like a lost puppy because his best friend.
I think he's doing fine. He sits in front of me.
I asked him. I said, we were joking about that, but
He's doing well.
Yeah, I know that. But and Neely is the only Israeli-born elected official.
And speaks Spanish because she's from Argentina.
Wow.
So she's a tremendous asset to our chamber, and as are most of the young members. I'm a big fan of theirs.
And the average age of the assembly is declining.
It dropped, which is
Yeah.
good too.
So that's good.
That's
and now Denny Farrell,
I guess
who was
he's-
there 40 some odd,
He's
long
not gonna
time. He's
They're gonna move up in rank over here.
We'll see.
no, your seniority is really
Yes, mine
moving
has
up quite fast.
Mine has, and honestly, to the speaker's credit, everyone has a task force. Every member now has
Yeah.
some leadership position. Not for a stipend, but because they want to have their voice heard.
Excellent. We're out of time, but
Oh my
I'm
gosh,
glad,
really already?
Mark, you're old friends, but I'm brand new
I know.
friends. So in any case, wish you the best of luck. You're doing
Thank you
great
so
work.
much.
You have a good past, and hopefully it's even a better future.
Continued
Appreciate it.
success,
Thank you.
Shelley, really.
Appreciate it. Thank you for having me on.